Hello, my Bill for Thousand Nation. How's everyone doing today? Hopefully everyone's having a great day. If not, I hope it gets better from here. We are back with another Mr. Ballen video. This one is titled "A Case So Mysterious It's Called America's Dyatlov Pass." All right, I'm excited. Let's go ahead and get into today's story. Go ahead, turn them lights down low, put on something comfy, cup with someone special. Let's get intrigued.
There is a very famous mystery called the Dyatlov Pass incident that occurred in the 50s in Russia, where you had 9 highly experienced hikers go out on an expedition and then not turn up at their rendezvous point. When a huge search party is launched and they're discovered, the circumstances under which they are found are truly baffling. I mean, you had people with clothes, some without. You had people that were mildly radioactive. You had people that were missing body parts. And none of it really fit the narrative that there had been an avalanche or that they had died of hypothermia. It was almost like something had attacked them. But we have
Bigfoot or military. Bigfoot or military. I'm just saying. Maybe it was both. Maybe it was a militarized big feet peoples. Maybe all the big feet came together and they made their own military from like different military things that they've just been going through, just taking shit. We don't know. We don't know.
no idea what it was. And so that mystery has endured for years, for decades. And so today's story is referred to as the American Dyatlov Pass incident because you have a group of people that go missing inexplicably and then are located under baffling conditions. And just like the original Dyatlov Pass, we know in today's story what happened to them for the most part. We just don't know why. But before we get into today's story, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right channel because that's all I do here. I upload 3 to 4 times a week, if not more. And so if that's something you're interested in, I would encourage you to gently karate chop the like button and then subscribe to this channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly.
That's right. Judy chopped that like button right in the throat. Right, Judy chop.
Uploads. All right, let's get into today's story.
Oh, Lordy. Let's get into it. It's gonna be fucked up. I love it.
Today's story takes place in 1978, and it focuses on 5 young men that were best friends, basically inseparable, who all lived in Yuba City, California, and they came to be known as the Yuba City 5. These 5 young men were all either mildly intellectually disabled or had a mental health disability, but they were all very high functioning. Jack Hewitt was the youngest of the group. He was 24 years old. He was fairly uncomfortable in social situations and didn't do well around strangers, but around his 4 best friends, he blossomed and was incredibly funny and lighthearted and got along extremely well. Ted Weiher was the oldest of the group. He was 32, and he kind of took a big brother approach to Jack Hewitt. He kind of looked after Jack specifically. Those two were very, very close. And Ted was known to actually occasionally make phone calls on Jack's behalf. When Jack felt uncomfortable calling a stranger on the phone, Ted would step in and be the bigger brother and make those phone calls for him. Bill Sterling was 29 years old, and he was deeply religious. He would spend a lot of his time going to the library where he would read Christian literature. Jack Madruga was 30 years old, and he was an Army veteran. However, he had been discharged from the Army after a medical evaluation determined that his IQ was too low. So he was discharged from the Army. He was the designated driver of the Yuba City 5 because he was the only one of the 5 that had a driver's license. Jack loved being the driver because he loved his white and turquoise Montego, a 1969 Montego. It was like his prized possession, and he felt very proud driving the group around. Last but not least, you have Gary Mathias, who was the unofficial ringleader of the group. He was 25 years old. He also was an Army veteran, and he as well had been discharged following a medical evaluation where they diagnosed him with schizophrenia. So he was discharged and he went back home to Yuba City to move in with his parents. Initially, when he came home, he really struggled. They hadn't found a good way to manage his diagnosis, but eventually his doctor found the right mixture of medications and treatment, and he totally stabilized. And in fact was able to even hold down a job working part-time with his stepfather in his gardening business. What really brought this group of 5 men together was their shared love of sports, really basketball specifically. When they got together, they were either talking about basketball, watching basketball, or playing basketball. The Gateway program that they were all enrolled in, the Voc Rehab program, they had a basketball team. And so they all played on that basketball team, and they were super passionate about that team. In February of 1978, their basketball team, along with a host of others, were slated to compete in a tournament where the winners of this tournament would get a free trip out to Los Angeles. And so the Yuba City Five was so excited about this tournament. Their tournament was supposed to start on February 25th, 1978, but their favorite basketball team, UC Davis, was playing just 50 miles away from them in Chico, California, on February 24th, so the night before their big tournament. So they decide that they want to go watch this game, right? They want to go out to Chico and root on their favorite team, but make sure they're back in time so they can get a good night's sleep before their tournament starts on the 25th. So they load up in Madruga's Montego, they drive the 50 miles out to Chico, California, and they root on their team, UC Davis, who ends up winning the game. Now, there were multiple witnesses that saw the Yuba City Five at this basketball game, so we know they were there. Following the game, the boys loaded up into Madruga's Montego, and they drove a short distance to a little convenience store in Chico where they got sodas and cartons of milk and some snacks. And the shop owner would actually say to investigators that he remembers them because they came in at about 10 p.m. and it was when he wanted to close down the shop. And so he remembers feeling annoyed when this big group, 5 men, come in and they're buying a bunch of stuff because it delayed the shop owner's ability to close down the store. That sighting at the convenience store would prove.
How many people have worked somewhere and it's like you close at 10 and it's like 9:58 and you have like 10, 13 people walk into your store and it's like, I hate that shit, bro. I get it. I understand. Like, I've been in that situation where you have no other choice. You know it's going to suck. You know it's going to piss them off, but you have no other choice. Like, I understand. I've been there. It still fucking sucks.
To be the last time anyone would see the boys alive. So that night, some of the boys' parents had stayed awake to wait for their son to come home. And when they didn't, and it was starting to get late, the parents started calling each other to ask if they had seen their son, and no one had. And so not only was it strange because the boys always told their parents and loved ones where they were going to be, but the idea that they would jeopardize a good night's sleep before this tournament that they had been obsessing about just seemed very, very uncharacteristic. And so by very early the next morning, all the families called the police and said something is wrong. So the police officer in charge of the investigation was Lieutenant Lance Ayers. Ayers had gone to high school with Ted Weiher, so he had a personal connection to this investigation and was more motivated than perhaps he would have been otherwise to make sure they are doing everything in their power to find these boys. When the first few hours of the search don't turn anything up, Lieutenant Ayers decides that he's going to greatly expand their search radius. And it was because of this expanded search that just a few days later they were able to locate Jack Madruga's Montego car. Presumably, after the boys had gotten their snacks and drinks at the convenience store around 10 p.m., they would have been driving straight back to Yuba City because they had that big basketball tournament the next morning. But the car was found 70 miles away from Yuba City, away from Chico, up in a remote forest on a dirt road. The families of the boys had no idea. They couldn't even speculate why that car would have driven up that access road into this remote forest. There was no reason they'd be going up there, at least none that the families would have any understanding of. In addition to the strangeness surrounding why it was 70 miles away up in some remote forest, it also didn't make any sense that the boys had abandoned the vehicle. Even though it was covered in snow, there was no indication that it had been stuck in snow. There was a
Okay, what was some of their disabilities? Like, did any of them just have moments where they just need to like claustrophobia or something? Did any of them have like claustrophobia, like the car just got too much and they just needed to get out of the car? Maybe that's why they was out of the car, and the rest of them was just they went with them that way they knew they was okay because it was snowing and storming. I don't know. Like, I think I've heard this on a different channel, if I'm not mistaken. I think I said it might have been aliens.
quarter tank of gas, so it didn't run out of gas. There were no keys in the ignition, so when the police had to hotwire it to drive it back, the car ran just fine. So there was no mechanical issues or any engine issues. They literally put it in park in the middle of nowhere and got out and left. They looked inside the vehicle, and all that was in there was some wrappers and cans and cartons from the snacks that they had presumably been eating since they left that convenience store. But no keys, all the doors were shut, one window was down slightly, and some wrappers. That was it. So the search shifts to now.
Hey, the window down slightly, even in the wintertime. I got my window cracked a little bit. I am claustrophobic. If I'm in there too much, and like especially in the wintertime where I can't open my window because it's so cold out and the heat's going and the heat is just hitting me in the face, and I get really claustrophobic. And so the best way for me to do counteract that is just to drive with my window cracked. As long as I can feel that cool air hit me in the face, I don't freak out as bad. So it could be something like that. Maybe the claustrophobia thing is correct. Maybe I'm on something. Never mind.
Now looking exclusively in the area that this car was found. And over the first couple of days following the discovery of the car, they're looking everywhere and there's no sign of the boys. And then unfortunately, a massive snowstorm rolls in and basically covers everything to the point where it's impossible to search. And they had to abandon the search until the early spring when the snow had melted a bit. During this waiting period, the families of the boys put out rewards, were requesting information from everyone and anyone that had.
If they can't do anything till spring, them boys are going to be dead. I swear, I think I've heard this somewhere. I don't know, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be dead.
The police were fielding thousands of tips and unconfirmed sightings about where they could be, but none of it amounted to anything. They made no progress. They had no idea where these boys were. On June 4th, 1978, so just a little over 3 months after the boys had gone missing, some motorcyclists that had been on a long road trip happened to be up in those mountains on those dirt roads near where the Montego, the car, had been discovered. They were about 20 miles from that point, and they had found this cul-de-sac that they parked their bikes in, and they decided to just kind of stretch their legs, and they look down a little ways off the cul-de-sac and they see this old looking trailer, and they decide just out of curiosity to just kind of walk over and see what it is. It would turn out that it was a trailer maintained by the Forestry Service, but it really hadn't been upkept in a long.
Is it like one of those trailers where if you're lost or it's wintertime or anything like that, you can get into it and keep warm? It's got usually like a few provisions. And, you know, people who've stayed in there, they'll leave stuff too. Is it something like that? I know they have them a little bit of everywhere. A lot of times they're kept up with the forestry places and even like the Boy Scouts of America and stuff like that. They'll go out and do stuff like that in 4-H and stuff.
Long time. And so as they're walking over, they see that one of the windows has been broken, and they think, okay, it's more than likely abandoned, and they think they're just going to open the door, poke their head in, and just see what's in there, just purely out of curiosity, because they're kind of in the middle of nowhere, and they're just curious. So they go up, and they open the door, and they're immediately hit with this horrible, horrible smell, and they shut the door, and they're like, I don't know what's in there. It smells like death. It would turn out that it was death. It was one of the Yuba City Five. It was Ted Weiher, who was the oldest of the group, who looked after Jack, who was the youngest of the group. It was his body. The mystery really only deepens when you go inside the trailer. Ted Weiher was found wrapped in 8 blankets on this bed inside of this trailer. His feet were badly frostbitten and gangrenous. He looked like he had lost about 50% of his body weight, and he had growth on his face, like his beard, that showed he'd been laying there almost certainly for about 13 weeks. Ted had died from a combination of starvation and from exposure to the elements. But in the trailer, in plain sight, were loads of fire-making materials. You had paperback books, you had kindling, you had matches, you had firewood. In addition to the fire-making material, there was additional clothing, heavy clothing, like for cold weather. There was lots of food, like sea rations, military sea rations, where you can basically pop it open and you have some food.
Yeah, like I was saying, like a lot of places like the Boy Scouts of America and stuff like that, they're little emergency huts. They're usually not very big. Some of them can be, depending on where you're at. Like I've stayed in a couple of them because it starts storming really bad or whatever. You need a place to hunker down. And They do. They have little provisions, and they ask you not to take more than what you need. Leave what you can, so on and so forth. And people will. I've walked in there, and there'll be sleeping bags and everything else. Are they dirty? Probably. Are they disgusting? Probably. But is it going to keep you from dying? Probably. So get the hell over it.
Food enough to feed someone for at least a year. So there's food in plain sight, there's fire making supplies in plain sight, and also there was a propane tank out back that was basically full, that if they just turned it on, they could have turned on the heat inside of the trailer, and then you would have had heat for quite some time.
Okay, MrBallen. A lot of us probably do know this, but there's a lot of people out there that are not very outdoorsy that doesn't know any of this shit. And these poor fellers had some disabilities. They might not have known. That's the really god awful part. But you figured that the two military people would have been able to sir figured this out with them. You know what I mean? Yeah, okay. So I can understand the other ones not knowing, but the two that was discharged from the military, they should at least know how to do this stuff. Like in general, they should.
But there was no signs that any of these supplies were ever touched. Now, one could potentially make the case that perhaps Ted, lacked the common sense to make a fire and to use up all the resources that were right in front of him. But Gary Mathias, his shoes were inside of that trailer, and Gary was in the Army. And I was
Yeah,
in the military, and I can tell you that the number one thing you're taught, pretty much no matter where you go in the military, is
how to make a
how
fire.
to survive. You're taught to be resourceful and to use things in front of you to stay alive.
Yeah.
And it just seems very strange that if you had Gary in there, that he wouldn't have
Old dry pine needles, fabric, Roma noodles. If you really need to start a fire, I'm telling you, Roma noodles will work. Burn them bitches, put up underneath some wood. It'll catch. It'll catch. Trust me.
immediately started a fire, or at least instructed the group to start a fire and eat the food, turn on the gas tank. Those are things that are just basic life-saving
Yeah.
skills. A day after Weir's body
And surrounded by snow, you got plenty of stuff to melt. If you got heat, you can melt the snow. You got water. You got a way to cook and boil.
is found inside of that trailer, searchers discover Sterling and Madruga's remains located approximately 11 miles from where the car had been located. Their remains showed signs of significant predation. Animals had gotten to their remains, and so there wasn't much left of them. But from what was left, investigators were able to determine that both had passed away from hypothermia. 2 days after Madruga and Sterling's remains are found, Jack Hewitt's remains are found as well, 2 miles from the trailer where Weir had been found. And Jack Hewitt had also died of hypothermia. So 4 of the 5 have been located, leaving Gary Mathias, who to this day has never been found. The only thing that investigators discovered was about a quarter mile away from the trailer where Weir was found, they found a bunch of blankets and a flashlight. It seems like that could have been where Gary at one point had been, but they don't know for how long, and they don't know where he went after that. So in addition to wondering where Gary went, you got to ask yourself, why did these 5 men drive
That's
70
crazy.
miles out of the way the day before they knew they had this big basketball tournament that they were not about to jeopardize? Why did they drive 70 miles away onto a remote dirt road in a remote forest? Why did they then suddenly park their car, turn it off, take the keys out, shut the doors, and then hike 20 miles in the dead of night in a snowstorm to some random trailer, and then get in the trailer where there's ample food, there's ample blankets and additional clothes, but use none of it and die over a 13-week period from starvation and exposure? Why? And so
Was there drugs in their system? Like maybe they was tripping and they just walked off into the snow and died.
There's many theories as to why this happened, ranging from, Gary Mathias is somehow responsible and that's why we haven't found him yet, to they simply took a wrong turn and that's how they wound up in this mountain in the middle of nowhere. But none of it really accounts for the purposefulness of all of their travel. If they had gotten lost, police believe they would have been maybe driving in loops. They wouldn't have just driven in a straight line, reached this point in the road, and then gotten out. It's not
like they wanted to
consistent
go there.
with being lost. So we don't know why they wound up on that road, or why they decided to go to that trailer, or what caused them not to use the supplies. But something happened. Something forced them to do this, and to this day, we don't know what it was. So I'd love to hear your theories as to.
Man, I don't know. Like maybe they just went up there to drink a few beers after the game, and you know, few of them walked off into the woods to use the bathroom. A few of them walked off that direction to use the bathroom, and they just got lost. I don't know. I don't know. This sounds just weird. Tell me what you guys think in the comments down below on what actually did happen to these people, these poor, poor people. I feel so bad for them. And to have all the abilities to make yourself live right there in front of you, and either A, not know how to use it, or just B, just not choose to. It's a weird one. All right. I really enjoyed today's story. If y'all enjoyed today's story as much as I did, please go down there, leave a thumbs up while you're down there going over, and hit that subscribe button. Become part of Bill 5000 Nation. We do some crazy shit here. If you want to know when that crazy shit happens, ding that bell. It'll let you know when it happens. And then you can jump in on the premieres and talk to me over in the live chat. And if you really want to, you can go down in the description, buried all the way down in the bottom. There's a link for the store. Got some amazing merch. It's beautiful. It's sexy. It's soft. It feels so good on my nipples. It's ridiculous. As always, be good on one another. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye. Yeah, it is. It's actually quite soft. Like it's rubbed up against my nipples a couple times, and it's just like Continental for your nose, bro.